Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, hoping that you are having a great day. And in today's video, I'd like to sit back in my kind of squeaky chair, relax, and have a little conversation with all of you guys where I answer another viewer question. This one comes from Terrence Miltner, who asks if I have a method for evaluating new card games. And you know what? I do play and try out and talk about a lot of card games here on the channel. Not all of them. I am working on playing as many as I possibly can, but you guys got to understand there's dozens and dozens and dozens of card games out there, and I'm one guy with only so much time in my life. I'd like to play them all, but, you know, who knows, right? So while I do play a lot of card games, and while I do judge them based almost exclusively on my own experiences and my own joy of them, I don't really have a hard set of rules, a hard set of criteria I use when evaluating card games I play. There are a list of things that I look for, certainly, but it's not like when it comes to video games where I have a very specific challenge that I can run a video game through and determine within 20 minutes or so whether or not it's a game that I'll enjoy. With card games, things are a lot more nebulous because there's, I shouldn't say a different method of enjoyment so much as it's not quite the same as a video game. You know, with a video game, I can sit down, give any video game my 20-minute challenge, and tell pretty much right away whether or not it will be good. Very rarely has my method of evaluating video games failed me. One time only that I can think of off the top of my head, in fact. Whereas with card games, I can have a very awful introduction to a card game and come back months later and find out that it's actually quite enjoyable. Or I can have a very good first impression of a card game and then come back later and think, that was actually kind of awful. But nebulously speaking, I like to think that I judge most things based entirely on vibes. You know, but that being said, I do, like I said, have a list of things that I do look for in games when I'm evaluating them to talk about, and I hope that in the future, when I get around to playing more games and experiencing them and sharing them with all of you guys, that this list of criteria will stay relatively the same. So top to bottom, of course, big one, of course, is vibes. You know, the overall aesthetic, the overall feel I get from the game when I'm trying it out for the first time, which any number of things can go into this factor. It's who I play it with, how well it was explained to me, how the game went, etc. But the big one for the actual things that can be measured is how good the core rules are, how easy it is to understand the core basic rules of the game. Do I need a small little list of rules to understand it, or do I need a book to get the basics out of the way? Are the core rules non-contradictory? Are there any obvious problems that will come about in regular gameplay just by following exclusively the core rules? And after the core rules are explained, and if they're explained, because I've had some card games where explaining the core rules is a job in and of itself, but there's also the mechanics of the game to think about. And there's a lot of people out there who tend to think rules and mechanics are one and the same, but it's not. The rules are the DNA of the game. Magic the Gathering has its mana system and its turn order. That is the encompassment of the rules, the different card types. It's a rule thing. But the mechanics are the kind of things that the cards themselves can do. You know, sorceries are a card type defined by the rules. But what the individual sorcery cards do is a mechanic. And some mechanics in some card games can be very intuitive and very easy to understand. And other times they are needlessly complicated or do something that you wouldn't expect it to do as explained on the card. Prohibition from Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a good example. If you ever have like a half hour to burn, look up the expanded rules for Prohibition from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that is a trick and a half, I have to say. But yeah, rules and mechanics both have to be kind of solid, I think, in order for me to really think a game shines. But there's also the cards themselves to think about. There's the card layout, of course, the frame, the border, how everything is arranged. Is it easy to follow what parts of the card go with what? You know, Force of Will, for instance. I got some Force of Will cards in front of me. What is Flesh and Blood? Oh, I got some Flesh and Blood So a Flesh and Blood card, almost grabbed the Force of Will card. A Flesh and Blood card has a very nice layout. There are 4 corners of the card that have the most important pertinent informations. How much it costs, how much it can pitch for, how much it can block, and how much it can swing for. If it can do any of those things, it's all readily available. Lots of Force of Will here. I just wanted to grab this one though. Force of Will cards have pertinent information at the very top of the card. There is the cost and the name. The effect is all at the bottom. You know, cards that follow those kind of simple layouts that are easy to understand, easy to follow, will always be superior to cards that have all kinds of crazy numbers going around. There's sideways numbers on the cards, like the Naruto TCG is one that comes up from time to time where there's a lot of... Do I have Naruto? Oh, I have Naruto cards on the table. So there's a lot going on when it comes to the Naruto TCG. Yes, there's the pertinent information, the name of the card, the art, and all that jazz. But there's also all kinds of numbers across the card. It turns sideways. And if you're looking at this as someone who's never played it before, you're probably wondering, what's this symbol? What are these 2 symbols? Why is there a sideways symbol in the card? And sure, the rules will go along to explain it, but it's easy to get yourself lost in all that information on the card in one place. And I tend to find if the card layout itself has way too much information, it's easy to find yourself wandering around trying to find what numbers matter in the moment, in the nitty-gritty of the actual gameplay. So cards that use their space well, I think, are preferable to cards that just have a lot of clutter. Force of Will got bad for a bit with that. There were some sideways numbers on those cards that I wasn't fond of, but they got better. They got better. Of course, then there's the art direction itself. Not just the art of the card, but let's go back to Force of Will or Flesh and Blood for a second. You know, Flesh and Blood has a unique frame for most of its cards. Magic has an iconic frame for most of its cards. I mean, I grabbed some uncards just now, but you know, you recognize a Magic card just by looking at it. But it's more than just the frame, it's the art itself. You know, a game can have stellar art and bad art direction. And bad art consistency, that's a big one that always gets me, you know. If the cards all look like they are, like, synchronistic, like they all happen in the same world, that's a lot preferable to me compared to cards that are kind of all over the place, you know. Force of Will and Flesh and Blood and like the Gundam TCG, the Digimon TCG, they all look, all of those card arts look like they happen in the same universe, the same world. You know, Magic is actually an example of really bad art direction, because you look at a Magic set and, geez, those cards are all over the place sometimes, especially when you get to some of the, like, secret layers. Half the secret layers don't even look like freaking Magic cards these days, and that always off-puts me just a tiny bit. And it's not just the art itself, it's also who's behind the art. Now that the whole AI art thing has been added into the mix, there are card games out there now. We've talked about some on the channel before. There are card games introducing AI art into their mix, and obviously I have a preference for human-made art made with hand and paintbrush and paint on canvas. I think that always looks nicer. Very loud motorcycle guy zipping past. He was quieter than I thought he would be, but still quite loud. You know, obviously I have a preference for human-made art, and AI art is automatically going to be a knock against you no matter how good the rest of the card is, layout, rules, mechanics, etc. That's just how it is, you know. You brought AI to a game. Don't do that. And then, of course, there's the nitty-gritty. The stuff that I kind of have to look for and be even more, you know, from the bottom of my heart, how do I feel about it kind of thing. You know, there's the back and forth gameplay loop. How is the core loop of the game? Does it feel more like Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, where there's a lot of interaction, like in Magic the Gathering? Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh can have a lot of interaction back and forth. Games like Pokemon, for instance, don't have a lot of interaction back and forth. You can't really interrupt what your opponent's doing, for instance. Variance is always a huge factor. How different are each of the games you're playing? Can you feel like you can slap 2 decks together and get a lot of different games going? You know, what's a good example of a game I've played? Hecatomb really felt like there was no variance to that game. If you had the same 2 decks, you were basically always incentivized to build the same big monster when playing against them. What's a good game that I like that has low variance? I suppose Mythos has low variance because you always want to play the exact same cards to get your story effects off. But even then, the order in which you do things can be wildly different each time. Variance is good, is what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to think of a card game that doesn't have amazing variance that's still enjoyable. There are some bad ones though. Hyborian Gates has basically no variance when it comes to how you want to win those games. It's go to one checkpoint, then the next checkpoint, the next checkpoint, you win. I'm not a fan of Hyborian Gates. I should try that again just to see what I think about it. And of course, balance. Balance is always a thing that everyone has to worry about in any card game. You know, some card games have amazing balance. Look at the Transformers TCG, for instance, which has, in my opinion, out the gate, that first box was amazing. The Wave 1 balance was great. The Star Wars TCG out the box, meanwhile, in my experience, Star Wars fans, I know that some of you guys disagree with me wildly here, but in what I experienced, the Star Wars TCG's first set was hilariously unbalanced. And that could be a huge factor too. You know, how well a game is balanced and how well its balance gets fixed down the road can have a huge impact on my enjoyment. You know, Flesh and Blood has a built-in balance mechanic, if you're not aware. Flesh and Blood heroes that win too many big tournaments eventually hit enough. It's not really a being ban. It's called Living Legend, but it's effectively a ban. And it's permanent. You know, it's every hero in the game is constantly working towards that ban thing, Living Legend status. So if enough heroes are played metagame at once, enough of them can be cycled out of the game in quick succession, which has happened more than once in the game's past. So that's kind of like an auto balance thing built into the nature of the game, whereas games like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Need regular updates to their ban list to account for balancing the game itself. So how well the game is balanced out the gate and how well it can be balanced will have a huge impact on just my overall opinion on the game. But honestly, at the end of the day, it mostly comes down to fun. How much fun am I having playing the game? You know, I haven't really talked about the Mega Man TCG in this video yet. So let me explain something about the Mega Man TCG. It fails a few things on this list. First off, the card layout is not great. It's very thematic, very flavorful, but the layout's not great, and the art is the worst it could be without being AI art. 99% of the Mega Man TCG's cards are just screen caps from the show, and you guys know how I feel about that. However, the core rules are great. The back and forth mechanic, the back and forth gameplay is really fun. It's a really intuitive game to play and has a lot of enjoyable moments, especially with the fact that it's based on an IP that I'm quite fond of. Sure, Decipher dropped the ball when it came to the art. They always drop the ball when it comes to the art. The layout could be better, but it's Decipher. They can always do a bit better. You know, and I end up enjoying that game quite a lot. Whereas games like, let's go to Star Wars Unlimited or Lorcana or Ophidian, I suppose. You know, these games have a lot going for them in theory that I just didn't enjoy playing all that much. Ophidian has this nice back and forth sports theme to it, where it feels like you're playing fantasy, sci-fi, murder football. That's a lot of fun in theory, but I just didn't enjoy playing it. Or at least I didn't enjoy playing it so much. Maybe on a retry I would enjoy it more, but I gave it a few honest shots and just didn't stick out to me. But yeah, it ultimately does come down to that fun factor. Who are you playing with, obviously, will have a factor on it. How well your first few games went will have a factor on it. But it's not like a video game where I can easily surmise my opinions on it quite quickly and then have those opinions be solidified rather instantaneously. You know, I can play a video game and know pretty much right away. Like I said, I come back to this. I can know pretty much right away when playing any video game, really, whether or not I'll enjoy it in the long run. But when it comes to a card game, I often find it myself going back and looking at the game and looking at the rules, the mechanics, looking through the card library and going, what do I think about this? You know, I've talked about a lot of card games on this channel before. Some of them that I really like and some of them that I don't. And more than once, my opinion on a card game has changed wildly. I used to not like the Mega Man card game that much, largely in part due to the fact that the art itself was so off-putting. I used to really like the Magic the Gathering card game, but Wizards of the Coast has done so many changes to it that I don't really enjoy it all that much anymore. You know, I used to love Yu-Gi-Oh, then I hated Yu-Gi-Oh, now I love Yu-Gi-Oh again. It's just this kind of back and forth thing. My tastes are always changing, and so are the games that I play, especially if they're not dead TCGs. They're going to change. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh is changing, Pokemon is changing, Magic is changing, Flesh and Blood, Force of Will, they're always changing. And so how I evaluate the games kind of has to change with that change, I should say. And like I said at the start, it's not really set in stone. It's not like a strict list of criteria. I go down on a checkboard going, does it have good rules? Check. Does it have good mechanics? Check. Does it have good art? Check. I ain't doing that. That's not how I roll. I like to be very informal when it comes to how I feel and how I talk about how I feel. About the various things I enjoy because, well, for one, I'm not a game journalist. I like life too much to be a game journalist. I'm too happy as a person to be a game journalist. So I don't go around with a checkboard going, yes, this game doesn't have, hang on. This game doesn't have this, therefore it's bad, ignoring all other factors. I don't do that, you know. It's largely based on whether or not I enjoy it, and that's good enough for me. And I hope it's good enough for you guys, too, because a lot of the games I talk about on this channel are going to be based in purely on whether or not I enjoy them. How I talk about them, I should say. How I talk about them will be based entirely on how I enjoy them. There we go. I got that sentence out, finally. And of course, if you guys want to see more of those, stick around because more card game videos are coming in the future. Soon-ish, I have a few that I want to talk about in the near future. And I hope that you guys enjoy them. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Terrence, for your good question. And I will see you guys in the next one. Like, share, subscribe. Check out the Discord, Patreon, TCG player link, all that jazz. And I will see you guys next time. Ciao.